Welcome to the My Fishing Cape Cod podcast. The My Fishing Cape Cod podcast is your local source for the latest news and information on fishing Cape Cod. Now, here's your host, Kevin Collins.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the My Fishing Cape Cod podcast presented by Cape Islands Mitsubishi. I'm your host, Kevin Collins, back with you for another one of our public fishing report podcasts. And today's guest is going to be AJ Coots of Red Top Sporting Goods in beautiful Buzzards Bay, Massachusetts. You may have noticed I mentioned this was a public podcast, which will be available on iTunes and other podcasting platforms for all to enjoy. And if you do enjoy the podcast and you want to hear more of these podcasts, head on over to myfishingcapecod.com and you can sign up for a membership and you will gain access to all of our Fishing Report podcasts, as we do post multiple Fishing Report podcasts per week. And those reports are very detailed concerning Cape Cod Bay, the Outer Cape, the South Side, the Cape Cod Canal, Vineyard Sound, Nantucket Sound, Buzzards Bay. You name it, we've got reports here on it. So if you enjoy this report from myself and AJ, head on over to myfishingcapecod.com, become a member, and you'll gain access to everything. With that out of the way, let's welcome in today's guest. Well, up next, as promised, our guest on today's edition of the My Fishing Cape Cod podcast is our great friend AJ Coots from down at the beautiful Red Top Sporting Goods in Buzzards Bay, Massachusetts. AJ, how are you heading into this Memorial Day weekend?
Hey, well, my birthday's tomorrow, so I'm doing great. The weather's beautiful, little light breeze. Fishing's been decent, so I mean, what else could you ask for, man?
Well, let us be the first to give you a big MFCC podcast birthday greeting and well wishes for tomorrow. I'm sure 25 is not going to be easy.
Yeah, 33, but what's the difference?
This weekend, let's start with the Cape Cod Canal. I know that's something that a lot of folks are always interested in, and we had a full moon this week. I believe it was yesterday on the 23rd of May. I think it was the full flower moon, if memory serves me, when I was looking at my chart. How did that affect the fishing?
So as of right now, we had a really bad storm yesterday. And you kind of would have thought that the front coming in would have produced quite a bit more fish than it did. It lasted down here. It poured for hours, thunder and lightning. We lost power at the shop for a few minutes. It was a pretty serious storm. That coinciding with the moon, typically the moon produces better fish a day to 3 days after the moon. It obviously varies, but typically the fishing after the moon is better. So, like you said, it's lining up for the weekend. The weather's good. The tides are good. So, we can be super hopeful on that. Bait-wise, we saw some tinker macks. There's some herring around. And there's still a lot of pogies in Upper Buzzards Bay, in the rivers, and then in the bay itself. So, bait-wise, kind of checking the boxes there. Squid has been a little off this year. I don't think the boat guys did great. My local guy that I usually buy squid from didn't have a lot this year, so squid seems to be a little off, but everything else, seems to be in full swing.
Now, in terms of the canal proper, as we're heading in to this weekend, how about some tips or just general things to keep in mind? I know it's going to be really busy down the canal this weekend, so that's one thing. Just be respectful of everybody's space and everybody's equipment. And obviously be respectful of the canal in terms of litter and everything else. But just some general tips, I think, for folks heading down there this weekend that they might need to know before they start getting a line wet for the first time.
Ooh, that's a good one. I would say because of the high volume of people coming down for vacation, and like you said, Memorial Day is kind of the kickoff for the summer where most people are finishing up college and the kids are getting close to the end of school year in high school. So you get a lot of traffic down in this area. And with the traffic, not only you get traffic jams, but you get a lot of people fishing. So if you go and you fish the more accessible spots, the Herring Run, the Railroad Bridge, the East End, those easier to access spots are going to fill up quickly. I guess my best advice would be don't fight the crowds. Go find some fish just a little bit farther down. And you could probably pedal down if you had a bike. Probably pedal down for 5 minutes and be completely by yourself and totally find fish. So, and then on top of that, if you're out there and you're fishing, say everything's right, the time of day, the tides, just everything looks fishy and nothing's going on. Don't be afraid to move. You may have a great spot, but you could fish that same spot all day and not catch anything. So is it really a great spot? Don't be afraid to pack up and move and really cover some ground.
That's good to keep in mind. And if you were going to give the canal a try this weekend, maybe you're on your canal bike or you're just looking to be mobile and cover a lot of ground, what are some plugs that you would definitely recommend, to pick up and have in your bag?
Yeah, so top water, you definitely want to have a couple of top waters in your bag. I like to have a floating top water that I can fish very slow. It has a little bit better action. It may not cast as far, but it definitely has a really good action. So something like that would be like a Wally's 3-ounce. And then to complement that, I try to have a longer casting pencil. That could be like a PK distant rip. It's a 4-ounce pencil popper that can really get you some extra distance when you can't really reach the fish. And then there's another one called Bob Davies, his Canal Cruiser or Slippery Squid. It can really help reach the fish when you're not able to with some of the lighter pencil poppers. So that kind of covers the surface part of it. Subsurface, you'd be looking at the big three are kind of the Magic Swimmer, the 228, and the 190 size. The SP Minnow would be another one. Again, they have a couple sizes. And then Yozuri makes their own version of the SP Minnow that's also a very good lure. So that's your top and bottom. And then recently, top and middle, excuse me. And then recently for bottom, the most popular has been the Fish Lab, the Soft Mac bait. It's a 6.5-inch bait, runs 5.5 ounces. So definitely requires a little bit more specialized gear, which if you're fishing the canal, you probably have. And that one's going to be jigged off the bottom for when you don't see any breaking fish, but you still believe there's fish around.
All right, that's all great, AJ. And I know in terms of striped bass, we're in full swing here as we're going into the last week of May. It's almost June, if you can believe it. Things are really kind of moving along and heating up. We talked about the canal. Let's talk about Cape Cod Bay and Buzzards Bay as well and not neglect those areas. Let's start with Cape Cod Bay. What are you hearing? I'm assuming there's a lot of positive reports coming out of the bay.
Yep, there's definitely some good fish in Cape Cod Bay. I've heard more reports from the Duxbury and Plymouth area than I have, if you're coming out of the east end of the canal banging a right. I haven't heard as much off the Barnstable area and going around the inside and up to P-Town. Doesn't mean they're not there, but it's been windy, it's been rainy virtually all spring, so that can limit the guys going out and finding those fish. So I think you got a great opportunity to catch a striper out there. Between Plymouth and the canal, there should be plenty of fish. And then I've also heard through the rumor mill, haven't seen any pictures or anything, but a couple of guys getting sea bass in Cape Cod Bay, which is kind of an up and coming trend because I also heard it last year. So it's kind of interesting to see those fish going into the deeper water and the colder water up to the north where they typically usually hang out in Buzzards Bay.
And in terms of Buzzards Bay, I know, speaking of water temperature, we're still should be good on that front. It shouldn't really get too hot over there, I wouldn't think, until at least mid to late June, where fish become a little bit more difficult to target. But what are you hearing on the striper front in Buzzards Bay?
Buzzards Bay is pretty much if I recall correctly, the same as when we talked last time. A lot of big fish feeding on pogies in Upper Buzzards Bay. That bait's sticking around, and the fish have no reason to leave. You touched on it briefly. The water temps are cool for this time of year. Talking probably 53 to 54 degrees in Buzzards Bay at the end of May. So, I mean, that's certainly not it's not bathwater that it can turn into.
And in terms of Buzzards Bay as well, AJ, I know we were kind of previewing sea bass opening, which opened back on the 18th. So it's been open for almost a week. And I know the start of that sea bass season was kind of marred by some really snotty weather. But what are you hearing in terms of sea bass reports for one? And then are folks still successfully getting tog as well out there as they're looking around this structure and rock piles for sea bass?
So I would think at this point in time, most of the with the striper season being in full swing, sea bass and fluke being open, most people actually, for whatever reason, and I don't know why, but most people really back burner tog and start to target the other species. So I haven't heard a lot of success stories about tog. Sea bass, on the other hand, is kind of our inshore. It's one of our other kind of highly sought after fish. And obviously, a lot of people went out on Saturday and Sunday of the opening weekend. From what I've heard, there's a lot of sea bass around that are on the borderline keeper size to just keeper size, and not as many jumbos as that you would think. So my best bet for the jumbos is try deeper water. Instead of off the tip of Stony Point Dike, or the usual being Cleveland Ledge and Cleveland Lighthouse. If you go down to just west of Woods Hole, you can find 50 to 65 feet there. And I think, if you don't find them on your way down, you hit the hot spots. I think that would be a great opportunity to maybe find some bigger fish down there.
And I know fluke totally kind of gets lost in the shuffle a bit. Sea bass is such an exciting season to open, and so many folks really love targeting those fish and bringing some home for the table. And obviously, striper is beloved here on Cape Cod. So fluke, I think, gets neglected a little bit, but I know there's probably not a ton of reports. It just opened a couple of days ago, but you guys are all stocked up, ready to rock, though, when it comes to the fluke fishery, if folks want to stop into Red Top this weekend.
Absolutely. We have an abundance of different kind of bucktails, virtually every color and style of belt that you'd need, as well as frozen squid strips. So definitely stocked up for the fluke season. And to be honest, a lot of that stuff can be used for sea bass and scup. So you don't have to have 3 different boxes for those fish. A lot of them you can dual purpose for different species, which is kind of nice. Other than that, I haven't heard a lot of success stories. Well, really any success stories about fluke yet. But, that seems to be a little bit warmer weather bite for Buzzards Bay. We're not as spoiled as Nantucket Shoals and getting the 10-pounders, but you can certainly get you'll get a few fish or a limit of fluke in Buzzards Bay if you know what to look for.
All right, AJ, that's all positive stuff. And we're heading into Memorial Day weekend. I'm assuming, are you guys open all weekend, or what does the store look like through this holiday weekend?
Yeah, so we don't close the store again until Thanksgiving. So we're in it for the long haul now. Right now we're running, I think actually next week, the first full week of June, I think our hours change. But right now, Monday to Friday, we're 8 to 6. Saturday is 7 to 6, and Sunday is 7 to 5. So, hours are definitely getting longer, staying later in the weekdays and the weekends. And like I said, I think in the next week or two here, that's going to be stretched out a little bit more. So the best thing to do on that is either call the shop or check online for the current store hours. But other than that, we'll be here. We'll be here Sunday. We'll be here holiday Monday, and hope to see everybody listening and in the shop.
All right, AJ, thanks so much for spending time with us this week. And the next time we catch up, it'll be the first week of June. I can't believe it, but look forward to catching up with you then.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it as well. We'll talk soon.
My thanks to AJ Coots of Red Top Sporting Goods for joining us on today's edition of the My Fishing Cape Cod podcast, presented by Cape Islands Mitsubishi. Certainly got a lot of intel out of AJ concerning the Cape Cod Canal, Cape Cod Bay, and Buzzards Bay. So really a lot of information heading into this Memorial Day weekend. As I mentioned off the top of the show, this is just one podcast out of many that get released here by myfishingcapecod.com every week. If you want access to all those reports, head on over to myfishingcapecod.com and become a member, and you will have carte blanche to Listen to as many reports as you would like, as well as our other podcasts with folks like Calvin Torrens Sandlin, the legendary Patrick Sebile. There's a huge podcast library that you will gain access to by becoming a member. Another thing I just wanted to mention quickly is the Fishing for the Mission 22 Black Sea Bass Fishing Tournament. Registration is still open. It's going to run Friday through Sunday, May 31st through June the 2nd. Fishing from 5 a.m. on Friday to Sunday at 10 a.m. The adult angler division is only $100 for registration. That includes your entry fee, a captain's bag, and a t-shirt. And if you have kids, junior anglers, children 12 and under, are free with the registration of an adult. So family-friendly fun for all with the Fishing for the Mission 22 Black Sea Bass Fishing Tournament. If you want more information on that, fishingforthemission22.org is the place to go. So with all that out of the way, I want to take a moment to wish everybody a happy and safe Memorial Day weekend from all of us here at My Fishing Cape Cod. Sure appreciate you taking time to check out the podcast. And until we chat again, this is your host, Kevin Collins, signing off. Tight lines and take care.
Thanks for tuning in to the My Fishing Cape Cod podcast. For the latest local news, information, and fishing reports, be sure to log on to myfishingcapecod.com. From all of us at My Fishing Cape Cod, tight lines and take care.